Well, hi everyone. Got a very interesting video for you today. I'm going to talk to you about semiconductor stocks and why they're so hot and which are the best stocks to buy right now. So stay tuned and please hit the subscribe button. Let's go. I am not a financial advisor. All information in this video is purely for informational purposes. Guys, investing in stocks is risky. Please consult your own financial advisor. I'm here to provide you with information, and you can take that information, combine that with your own research and convert that to knowledge, and hopefully with your experience that can be converted to wisdom. So let's move on. So what is a semiconductor? I'm sure you've heard this a lot and you've heard about semiconductor stocks. So what's the big deal? Essentially what a semiconductor is a material that has a special property where the conductivity is in between a conductor and an insulator. So the conductivity is in between copper, which would be a conductor, or glass, which would be an insulator. So it kind of gives it a unique position to be right there in the middle. Semiconductors are also referred to as 3-5 materials since they typically exist in groups 3 and 5 in the periodic table of elements. That's probably the class in chemistry class that you slept in college or high school. But essentially, this is the most important group of materials right now. And the examples of those are silicon and germanium. They're generally crystalline in structure, though sometimes semiconductors can also be non-crystalline. So you can see over here how a semiconductor is made. It's a whole set of complex processes. Basically, you start with the silicon, crystal over here, and then you end up slicing and dicing that, polishing it, and then you have a whole bunch of operations that take place in a very complex factory to either deposit a material or etch and remove a material or polish a material or do some kind of patterning process to it. And then you end up with basically getting your chips on the wafer, your semiconductor computer chips, which you then cut into small pieces and then you sell. And if you look at one of these chips in cross sections, they are extremely complex. You can see it's like basically having a 8-story, 10-story, 12-story building, and making that whole building from the ground, from the top rather than from the ground up. So you're basically starting from the top and you're etching and depositing and doing all the stuff. So extremely complex process. Typically a semiconductor factory costs anywhere from $2 billion to as much as $10–12 billion for some of the more recent complex factories. And the reason for that is because they have all this complex equipment, as I mentioned, deposition, etch, photolithography, the metrology tools for making measurements, very fine measurements. They're looking at individual atoms in the chips, things like that. They also require a dust-free clean room space for manufacturing, which by itself is very expensive. And so if you look at it, there's actually just a few companies that dominate this whole space. If you look at the semiconductor equipment side of the business, you can see over here the growth in the market in 2016 was around $40 billion. 2020 is about $72 billion. And the big players here are Applied Materials, Lam Research, ASML, ASM, TEL from Japan, Hitachi from Japan, KLA Tencor from the United States, and a few others. I've just listed the big ones. So you can see it's a fairly large market, 72 billion, that's shared between 6, 8, 10 players. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, which is the semiconductor device companies, you can see here the dominant player here is Samsung with about 45% market share. And then you've got Intel, about 15 or 16% share. Hynix, SK Hynix from Korea, about 8%. TSMC, which actually is also a foundry that makes chips for other companies, they're about 7.5%. And then a whole list of other companies in here. What's driving semiconductors? Essentially a number of things. So reading out from the top, big growth in data analytics. It's about a 250% growth over the next 5 years. Memory and storage is essentially doubling. And I think it's going to be even higher post-COVID because more people are working from home and more people are storing things online. More people like me are setting up YouTube channels, and that requires more memory, things like that. The Internet of Things. Everybody wants all their devices to be connected. They want their clothes to be connected. They want every part of themselves to be connected to the Internet. And that's what's driving the Internet of Things. Telecommunications. So these are things like your 5G chips, which is going to come out probably later in 2020, early 2021 in the United States. It's already out in China. And this is going to certainly revolutionize the speed of your phone, something like 10 times, 20 times faster. Mobile devices, obviously, that's another area of growth. More and more people having not just their first cell phone, but their second and third now in many cases. Their iPads and other things as well. AI or artificial intelligence, which I think is going to be a huge driver for semiconductors. And I think over the probably next couple of years, you're going to see semiconductor device makers specializing in just AI chips specifically for certain purposes. Autonomous driving, I think the average car last year had something like 32 chips in it. In a couple of years, that's probably going to be more than 100 chips controlling every part of your driving experience. Graphics, everybody wants a much more better graphical interface. They want better graphics. They want better video capability as you work from home. Gaming is the other one, AR, VR, so that's augmented reality, virtual reality, that's driving a better gaming experience. Cloud computing, edge computing, and then finally, I think something that people are underestimating in a post-COVID work, with the work at home culture, you're going to be more and more dependent on computer chips to give you a better work experience working from home. And essentially, if you look at the numbers, the global semiconductor industry is expected to grow from around $450 billion in 2020 to around $700 billion by 2025, which is a growth rate, an annual growth rate of around 11%, which is really amazing. Now, you probably have seen there's some trends on some of these things I wrote about here. All of these are basically the hottest trends right now in the market, in the stock market. So semiconductors are bang in the middle of all of these trends. So in my view, the top semiconductor stocks, really I would put them into three categories. There's the equipment, and in there you've got a number of players, but really my hot picks would be Lam Research and Applied Materials. You've also got ASML, which makes very complex machines called photolithography machines. I think they sell each machine for $120 to $150 million. They've got companies like KLA, which are very specialized in the measurement metrology. But in my view, the top picks would be Lam and Applied Materials. On the semiconductor devices side, you've got a number of companies. I've just listed a few. NVIDIA is really hot. The stock might be a little bit overvalued right now. I think AMD is a great stock, maybe also a little bit overvalued and with all the hype. I think Intel potentially has tremendous upside, but they've got to get their act together. They've got to catch up on the technology. They're probably a couple of years behind their nearest rival. Micron, I think, is a great opportunity. It's a very cyclical stock, so look for a better price on that. I think Samsung is a good opportunity, but again, Samsung, I think the profit margins are pretty thin, so I would avoid Samsung for now. Qualcomm is a great company, again, well positioned for the 5G growth. And probably my favorite pick here is on the semiconductor foundry, TSMC, which really is essentially the one-stop shop for everybody to go and make their computer chip at TSMC. So everybody outsources the manufacturing of the semiconductor to TSMC. And they have dominant market share. I think it's like 75–80%. And this company is just an incredibly well-run company. Okay, so in terms of my buy targets and 5-year price targets, if you look at the semiconductor equipment stocks, I think Lam is a good buy around 220 to 240. Of course, that's a lot lower than what it's probably trading for these days. I think it's around $300 right now. So you're going to have to wait for a pullback in the market, which I think you will get in the next few months. But the 2025 price is, somewhere around $650 to $700, so huge upside. Same thing with Applied Materials. It's trading around $60 right now. I think wait for an opportunity for it to pull back in the maybe high 40s or low 50s. And I think hold on to it and it'll reward you well. NVIDIA, definitely overvalued right now. That has to come down significantly, but there's great opportunity. I think Micron is something also you got to keep an eye on. It's a very cyclical stock. If you can get it at somewhere between 35, 40, maybe 45 at the most, hold on to it, and that could be close to $100 in 5 years. Qualcomm, again, tremendous opportunity. If you can get it around $70 to $80, I think hold on, it would reward you at about $245 in 5 years. And finally, my favorite pick, TSMC, if you can get it about $48, $50, and hold on to it for 5 years, it's probably going to be worth north of $185. So look for the right opportunity and get in and hold on to these stocks. These are all amazing companies. Thank you very much. If you like this video, again, please hit the like button, do subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. Thank you so much.